Hello and welcome to episode 36 of the Lazy Couch Podcast. This is usually a weekly podcast covering the latest in technology, the internet, movies, and much more. But today is a special shorter episode dedicated to Back to the Future. My name is Kelvin Lee. I'm with my co-host Geoff Kim, and we're recording just a day short on Thursday, 22nd of October in Sydney, Australia.
Yes, we're officially in the future now, Kelvin.
I know, things are going to change from today.
That's right. So what were you saying? Back to the Future is always in the past now.
Yeah, I know, it's very sad. Think about it.
Yeah, so we thought we're a bit light on general news items this week. Yeah. So we thought we'll do a Back to the Future special. And, we've been sort of talking about this day for the whole duration of this podcast, pretty much.
Yeah, it means for the whole duration of the trilogy, really. I think people have been talking about this day.
That's right, yeah. So I came across an article earlier this week on BuzzFeed of all places, why this date, 21st of October 2015, has sort of become such a cultural phenomenon, right? Because it's not something that you would know, but everyone sort of know this date now. Yeah. This is because back in 2010, 5th of July to be exact, a guy called Daniel Dalton, who used to be a digital production editor at Total Film in the London office. So apparently, back in those days, it was a very small team. He ran the website as well as the Twitter account. Mm-hmm. And apparently the project manager at the time, she said, I watched Back to the Future 2 last night. And I think today is the date when Marty McFly and Doc Brown go to the future. Yeah. So he, without researching, without any, thinking about anything, he just tweeted that out to 30,000 followers.
Wow.
And that just became a massive thing and went all around the world. People got fooled, and that was sort of the first hoax.
Yeah. I like it how he's like, I could have Googled, I should have Googled.
Yeah.
But being first was way more important.
So even back in 2010, 30,000 followers on Twitter goes a long way.
Yeah, I know. Crazy.
Yeah, and then the second hoax was in 2012, where they purposefully said, hey, surely people can't fall for it twice in a row. They actually wrote that in the tweet, and people fell for it all over again. So,
but no more hoaxes. Yesterday was the Back to the Future day.
Yeah, and we should probably sort of talk about the movies, the original trilogy. Of course, the first one came out in 1985. Did you watch that in the cinemas at all, Kelvin?
I was 2.
You were 2. I never got to watch it in the cinemas, but definitely 2 and 3, parts 2 and 3. That was, for me, it played a massive role in sort of my upbringing. And I remember being really, really excited when those 2 movies came out. And I think this is the first time, perhaps in the history of Hollywood, where they shot the 2 sequels together.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and they only came out 6 months after each other. So part 2 came out in November 1989 and part 3 came out in May 1990.
Yeah, I definitely didn't watch any of these in the cinema because I remember at the end of, I think when I was watching on TV or Laserdisc back then, I remember at the end of part 1, it was to be continued.
Yeah.
And I was reading up on Back to the Future and whatnot. In the movies, because they never planned for the sequels, there was no to be continued. So I definitely didn't watch it in the cinema because I remember then I was really excited about part 2.
I think part 2, the ending for that said to be concluded.
Yeah. So if they shot it together, then they knew it was going to be a trilogy.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of the production budget for the first one, so it was actually the biggest grossing movie of the year, 1985, especially globally, in Asia. I remember in Korea it was the biggest at the time, and probably still was for a long, long time, the biggest movie ever. The production budget was $19 million.
In 1985, that's big dollars.
It is big, but if you do compare it to some of the stuff that's going on now, production is almost $500 million.
$19 million would get you Johnny Depp.
Yes, that's right. In probably not even actually.
Not even
not
actually.
In Pirates,
at least 25, right?
It ended up making $381 million, so I don't know what that equates to current days, but you wouldn't say it's quite a $1 billion movie, but
yeah. I mean, and the fact that now, all the trilogy Blu-ray DVDs and whatnot are being flocked all over the internet and the likes of JB Hi-Fi, so more money is going to be coming in.
Yep. And the second and third, they both had a budget of $40 million each, so they had a little bit more, so $80 million for the shooting of the two. But they didn't perform as well in the box office, so they went down progressively, like going down to $332 million and then $245 million.
Yeah, and that was also the case when you look at Rotten Tomatoes ratings.
Okay.
So part one was a 96%. I think... Has there ever been 100% of Rotten Tomatoes? It's probably worth looking up. Number two was 61%, which I thought was a bit unfair, kind of low. I think it's underrated. And part three is 73%.
Yeah. So I really hated the third one when I watched it.
Yeah, no,
but the second one I loved. That was my favorite for a long time.
Yeah, no, I think for me it's definitely in the sequence of the trilogy. My favorite was first, and then the second and the third was just let's not even talk about that.
Yeah.
So in order to sort of, give you some fun facts about the movie, I came across this really good USA Today article on the top 30 things you didn't know, and I picked some of my favorites, so I thought we'll go through that. And I think a lot of this stuff you already knew, so I think you're a much bigger Back to the Future fan than I am. So number one, the Back to the Future script was rejected 40 times. Before Universal bought it.
That one I didn't know.
Yeah, Disney said no because it was a movie about incest, referring to the scene in 1955.
Well, it wasn't about incest. There was a little bit of an incest scene in there.
Yeah, where Marty kisses the 18-year-old version of his mother. Fun fact, it didn't seem to stop Disney from buying the Star Wars film in where siblings Luke and Leia share a kiss. Yeah. And when you think bad about it, the plot was kind of odd. But it kind of grew into people, I guess, and you don't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
Number two, during production, one of the executives from Universal sent a very serious memo to producers saying that he thought the film's name was confusing. Like, how do you go back to the future? So he even suggested one of his own, Spaceman from Pluto. Nice. Steven Spielberg responded farcically, thanking the executive for his joke and saying the entire crew got a kick out of it. I don't know, if I could name it something else, what would I call it?
Marty's Underpants.
Number three, in early drafts of BTTF, I think we might as well start using that, the time machine was a refrigerator. A gag that George Lucas and Steven Spielberg finally got to use years later in an Indiana Jones movie that shall forever go unnamed. Crystal Skull.
It survived a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, because it was lead-lined. Number four. After tinkering at a couple of ideas, the writer Bob Gale realized he hit gold when he decided a DeLorean should be the time machine, especially given the car's troubled history and the car maker's even more troubled history. Fun fact, John DeLorean, who later wrote to Gale and director Bob Zemeckis a thank you note for using his car, went bust in 1982 in a $24 million cocaine deal. But once filming began, Universal's product placement team got an offer from Ford that would have paid them $75,000, roughly about $171,000 today, if they had switched it to a Mustang. And Bob Gale responded, "Doc Brown doesn't drive a beep Mustang."
That's kind of interesting because like nowadays DeLoreans are cool, right? Like you see one on the street, it's oh my god, that's really cool. I didn't quite realize that at the time it was a bomb. Like
I didn't realize it was such a lemon either. I mean, it had the what do you call those doors again? Scissor doors? No, not really.
Butterfly.
The butterfly wing, hull wing doors. Yeah. I know. I mean, but as a kid, I loved it. I loved the fact that it had the flux capacitor. I think. I didn't realize, what a shitty car it was. Number five, Marty McFly was not the first choice, and I didn't know this. It was actually Eric Stoltz, aka the guy who plunged the adrenaline into Uma Thurman's heart in Pulp Fiction.
That's him, yeah.
But he was fired for being too dark and brooding.
Well, they actually shot a lot of the film with him already, and there's you can probably look up some YouTube clips of him actually acting out the Marty McFly parts, which is a bit strange. Yeah, and there are conspiracy theories that some of the cutscenes within the movie is actually him. So apparently they wasted $4 million and they had to reshoot a lot of that start of the first film. And they still only managed to use only $19 million.
Which is pretty incredible when you think about it now. Number six, because of, very busy shooting schedules for Michael J. Fox, who was 22 at the time, he had to jump between Back to the Future and Family Ties for about 3.5 months. And if you read the article, the schedule is insane. He gets only 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and the driver's just, driving him left, right, and center. So that was pretty crazy. Number seven, in a French version of Back to the Future, 1955, Elaine believes Marty's name to be Calvin Klein because it's written on his underwear.
Yeah.
But for the French version, a different name was used. Do you want to guess what that name was, Jeff?
Kelvin Lee.
Pierre Cardin.
Oh, okay.
Hoping you're coming to French designer.
That's a little bit like how what is it, Faulty Towers? You know that series?
Yeah.
You know Manuel, who's the
Butler,
the porter or something of the hotel.
Yeah.
He always says, I know nothing. I'm from Barcelona.
Yeah.
So in Spain, they actually, when they translate, it's like, my name is Manuel. I'm from Mexico. It's a bit like that.
Yeah, it's cultural personalization right there. So no, those are my favorite 7 out of the 30. So have a look at the article and let us know what your favorites were.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely learn a lot out of this article.
Yes, and going into some more trivia and perhaps maybe, the dates passed, but there's still some things that you can do to celebrate the event because, I've been looking forward to this date because now I can actually say we're officially in the future.
Yeah.
And, let's just go through this upvoted article that I picked out. So things that you can do to celebrate. Obviously, you can watch the marathon. I realized it's not on Presto or Netflix.
Oh, so it has to be on Stan.
So I couldn't. I was gonna watch it last night, but maybe on Stan, is it? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe we should have a trilogy weekend.
Yeah, I actually have the DVD set, but I couldn't be bothered to actually find it and then load it on. That's how lazy I am these days. Did you know there's a Back to the Future comic book series?
Yes, I actually think I have seen it before.
Yeah,
but I've never read it.
So that's another one to probably check out. We talked about the Pepsi Perfect thing that happened as part of Comic-Con New York.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that Ford has a thing that you can attach to your dashboard that looks like a flux capacitor?
No!
So it's another thing to check out. And the Cubs. So what's happening with the Cubs? We found out today they actually earlier in the day they were losing 6-0 in Game 4 and they were already 3-0 down in the series. So I don't think they won, but that prediction has been bust.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's all these trivia nights and things that you can attend as well. I know there was one at Good God last night.
Yeah. So, bring out all your nostalgia gear, all that T-shirts that you have of, the 80s and 90s, and it really does sort of, I think Back to the Future is one of those trilogies that really works really well regardless of how old it is.
Yeah.
I think if you might watch it now, it's have a lot of fun. I mean, if I think back, I must have watched it in maybe 1995, so probably 10 years after it was made.
Yep.
And I still had a lot of fun, and it still sticks in the back of my head. So
what seems to be clear is that there's going to be no part 4, although part 3 is kind of open-ended with that flying train.
Yeah.
But Zemeckis and, the cast and everyone, I guess they're too old now, I guess.
Yeah.
Because Doc Brown is like 75 now.
Yeah.
So there's going to be no sequel, unfortunately, but maybe a prequel?
Or a remake?
A remake? No, no one would dare. I hope not anyway.
If they take the concept though and they do it now, they would have to travel to 2045.
The singularity. They fly into the singularity. It's not gonna happen.
I say it would be shot on Mars. So Universal, if you ever need someone to write that story, give us a ring.
Maybe Matt Damon's waiting there. I still haven't seen that movie.
I still haven't either.
Okay, just to close out now, my favorite thing that I found out this week. So apparently Back to the Future predicted the future. In particular, the 9/11, September 11 attacks.
Yeah.
So this is quite out there, but as you sort of watch this video, it's very highly produced. It almost convinced me.
Yeah.
So they talk about in that scene where Marty meets Doc to do the experiment of the time travel. It's a parking lot of the mall called
Twin Pines
Mall. And so the theory is that was indication of the Twin Towers. And of course, when they're doing the experiment, the terrorists, the Libyans, sort of come out of nowhere and start attacking them.
Yeah.
So what happens is Marty is forced to actually go into the past.
Yeah.
But as soon as he does that, he goes into the that parking lot used to be a farmland or a pine tree farm. Yeah. And he knocks down one pine tree. Yeah. So when he goes back to the present later, it's called the Lone Pines Mall.
Yeah. And the other thing that you sent me this video this afternoon, it was 1:16 when
the time is shown at that in that scene. It says 1:16 a.m. But if you flip that around, kind of looks like 9/11.
Yeah. So I agree. It's very well produced.
Yeah.
And it does read into every detail of that movie. I think you sort of keep your mind open about it and just watch it. If you're into conspiracy theories, you'll love it just for how all these Easter eggs apparently connected to 9/11 that you find in the movie.
The crazy thing for me was that at the end of the first one, where you got the trail of fire going into the cinema, and it looks like a 11, right? But then to the side on the left, there's like a neon sign that spells out a 9. So it's like, well,
dun dun dun.
So I think it's all coincidence and a bit of synchronicity.
Yeah. But,
in the Carl Jung sort of way, but
a fun one to send to your friends and make them freak out a little bit.
Yeah, actually, the other thing is Zemeckis' current film, The Walk, which is set on the Twin Towers. So
30 years after in 2015
So is
in
it all
October.
connected? I don't know.
So I think we better leave you with that. You can think about that. But I think it was a lot of fun talking about Back to the Future. It's definitely a classic that everyone should get onto. So if you haven't seen it for some reason, definitely get onto it. If not, a lot of this episode won't make any sense to you.
That's right. Yeah. So it's just a very quick one. We'll go back to normal programming next week. In the meantime, please write to us on Twitter at The Lazy Couch. Email us on thelazycouchpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook and YouTube, and rate us on iTunes.
Kelvin?
Geoff out.